Welcome to Module 3, which is all about customer experience, why it's important, and what we can do to improve the customer experience we deliver on a daily basis. First, let's go ahead and define customer experience, what it is, and why it's important. Customer experience is the interactions that the organization and the customer have over the course of their relationship. For the purpose of this course, we're going to shorten the term customer experience to simply CX. So if you hear me say CX over the course of this module, I'm referring to customer experience. So this means that CX isn't just one interaction. It's a combination of all of the interactions and every aspect of a company's offering that reaches a customer. Now, customer experience is important because it increases the lifetime value of a customer to your dealership and department significantly if done correctly. This is what is known as an infinite strategy versus a finite strategy, where one transaction equals one transaction and it never grows to anything more than that. Any touch point with the customer is included here. In our case, this means that includes our marketing, phone calls, deliveries from parts drivers, emails, and anything else you can think of which is interaction based with your customers. Even your parts packaging from your manufacturer would be included here, since it's something the customer sees and interacts with. So in order to understand the customer experience, we have to use a map of what we perceive is happening both before and after a parts purchase takes place. Once we learn the basics of what makes up the full customer experience, we'll talk tactics on what you can do right now to improve each phase. And that brings us to the parts sales funnel, where we can get a better understanding of the path a customer takes when interacting with our parts department. This is a real life example of a funnel I've built to better understand the areas that need to be optimized in order to improve overall customer experience and therefore sales. At the top of the funnel, you see discovery. It's also the largest part of the funnel. And the reason is because this is the stage which reaches the most amount of potential parts buyers. And the goal is to overload this phase of the funnel in most cases. Not everyone who enters into the discovery phase will ever make it to the last part of the funnel, and that's why the funnel continues to get smaller as it goes down. The discovery phase is when the customer becomes aware that you exist and knows what you do or what your offering is. As soon as that happens, they're in the discovery phase. So let's take a look at some of the ways you can increase the amount of potential buyers that are in that discovery phase. Number one is advertisements. Do you sell parts online? Side note, if you don't, it's probably time to start. But either way, digital advertisements, TV ads, newspaper ads, magazine appearances, wraps on vehicles, and so on. These are all going to increase the visibility you have in the marketplace. The more times you can get your name and offering out in front of a customer, the more likely you are to transition some of those potential customers into the next phase of the funnel. The second would be outside sales. This is the most effective way to add to your discovery phase in terms of potential wholesale clients and using some strategic outside sales initiatives. Cold calling, cold emailing, going to automotive events, hosting training, or any other outside sales related activity applies here. And next is word of mouth, the best and cheapest method. This is why referrals are such a big deal in the 7 disciplines contained in the last module, because the more word of mouth referrals you can get targeted for your dealership, the bigger that discovery phase gets, which again ultimately improves your chances of converting those potential customers all the way through the funnel. The second phase of the parts sales funnel is called intake. A customer transitions from discovery to intake once that customer contacts you for a quote or for any other reason. It's making an interaction with your parts department that they have initiated that changes them from the first phase to the second phase, which is intake. So if a potential client hears about you from one of their friends and decides to give you a call to quote some accessories on the vehicle, they've moved through the 2 phases of the funnel at that point. So here's some ways we can take that very large discovery phase and help transition some of those customers into the intake phase. Targeted advertisements with promotional incentive. These have the potential to take your client from discovery straight through to transaction all in one shot. And it's a great way to open up a new relationship or to foster an existing relationship. And adding another way to guide that transition is by making it easier for first-time buyers to do business with you. If you have a problem with getting the phones answered, you'll have customers who are trying to transition down that funnel but won't be able to because of the friction that has been created by your business. Make sure your phone numbers, emails, and websites are all very clearly visible to potential customers in the discovery phase. And ensure that someone is monitoring all of those things efficiently so that you can make the transition as seamless as possible. The third phase of this funnel is the transaction phase. In order for a customer to transition to this part of the funnel, a purchase has to happen. This is where we want to guide all of our customers toward, eventually making a purchase. Optimizing this phase takes true discipline. Most people think that when a transaction has been made, the work is over, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. The truth is that the work never ends. You can never stop optimizing customer experience. And when your customer has entered the transaction phase, your job is to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible so that they are easily transitioned into the last phase. The transaction phase and the management phase often go together because they happen at the same time. As soon as that transaction is made, your immediate job is to make sure the customer comes back to purchase from you again. And the only way that's going to happen is if you ensure that your funnel is 100% optimized at every single step. It only takes one bad experience for a customer to drop you and move on to another dealership. But it takes a massive amount of work to ensure that the customer is coming back to you for all of their parts needs and not buying from anyone else. So again, here are some ways we can optimize these stages. Make sure the transaction is seamless. Call the customer if something happens and a part doesn't show up. Call them when it arrives. Keep them in the loop on everything. When your customer orders from Amazon, they get an alert delivered to their phones at every single step of the process. That's the level of discipline we have to instill in ourselves to be able to compete with the giants and win. And also, follow up after the transaction is completed. This is part of the last funnel stage, which is management. We've talked about following up specifically in the 7 parts sales disciplines. It's the most important thing we can do to help improve our customer retention rates. Now, management is what we do to get the customer to purchase from us again. We want to continue the cycle of bringing them into the discovery phase all the way down through the transaction and management phases as many times as we possibly can. And that's what the management phase is all about. It's building the strategies to ensure the customer comes back and purchases from you again and not the competition. So now that we've covered some of the basics of customer experience and the parts sales funnel, let's discuss optimizing the funnel and what you can do to provide the best customer experience in the industry. Because remember, it all starts and ends with you on the front lines. In the next lesson of this module, we're going to get into the tactics that can be used immediately to improve every phase of the parts sales funnel. Make sure you download the materials in the download section so that you can reference back to this as you go through the rest of the module.